rights organizations fighting against the abuse of children are once again making a call for the term child pornography to be done away with. The organizations believe the proper term, which shows the gravity of the crime, should be child sexual abuse material. They say that using the term child pornography assumes that a child gave consent to be part of the act and minimises the fact that they are victims of violence and abuse. In its 2021 report, the South African Law Commission also recommended amendments to the Sexual Offences Act and Child Justice Act in favour of the term child sexual abuse material. We speak now to Dr Shaheda Omar, Teddy Bear Foundation Director, for more. A very good evening to you, Dr Omar. Thank you for your time. I mean, these are some important amendments that need to be made. Why is that? Why is this big call for the change of the terminology to be enacted?
Okay, so good evening to everybody. The term child pornography is often criticized for several reasons. I think leading to the suggestion of using child sexual abuse material. And the key reasons for the shift in terminology, one, firstly, is to minimizing harm. The term pornography can imply a level of consent or voluntary participation that does not exist in the case of children. Children cannot give consent. And using the term child sexual abuse material highlights the abusive nature of the content and the exploitation of children. Secondly, I think the focus is on victims. The term CSAM centers the conversation on the victims of these crimes rather than the illicit material itself. It emphasizes the creation, distribution, and sharing of these materials are acts of abuse against children. It actually speaks to the extent, the gravity, the severity of the heinous nature of the crimes. But also, thirdly, if we look at the legal and moral clarity here, the termination or terminology used in legal context can have implications for how society perceives or views and responds to these issues. This can have a huge impact on how the criminal justice system sees, identifies, understands the extent of the abuse that child sexual abuse material is having, and it more accurately reflects on the actions involved, because it's exploitation, it's abuse, it's harmful, it's inflicting on the well-being, psychological well-being of children. But another reason is also looking at the combating of stigmatization, where we look at language that accurately represents the nature of the material, helps reduce the normalization, because it normalizes, it's like neutral, the grandiosity, the eroticization, and it trivializes the issue. It underscores the seriousness of these crimes and the urgent need for prevention and victim support. And of course, encouraging reporting and awareness. Clear terminology can improve the reporting mechanisms, referral pathways, and encourage awareness campaigns as it directly addresses the horrific nature of the crime and encourages communities to take action against it. By changing the language, it describes the severity and harmful acts that play a significant role in how society understands, addresses, and ultimately prevents the exploitation of children. I think it's also aligned to the legislative frameworks where it will also influence and direct the outcomes of crimes that are meeting, punishment that is meeting the crime.
Dr. Omar, what steps will need to be taken to make sure that this term is done away with and used correctly, as you make mention of the many examples of some of the implications that come with the term?
Well, I think steps are already underway. If you look at child advocacy, we're advocating for children's rights, the Law Reform Commission, and civil society organizations working with sexual abuse material are already standing and fighting for this scourge, because globally, as we speak, in the European countries, this has become an accepted term of reference which indicates that we have, it's a no-brainer. If we want to see crimes being addressed appropriately, adequately, to attend to the scourge of violence that is committed against children who are powerless, defenseless, and who are victims and who are not in a position to give consent, this has to happen. And we are quite optimistic as child rights activists that in the next year there will be some transformation promoting the best interests of children.
And when it comes to the impact of child pornography, I mean, what are some of the latest revelations and findings that are under scrutiny?
Well, if we look at the underworld, the organized syndicate crimes and child trafficking and luring and the imaging of children and how it's such a lucrative industry, it's organized, sophisticated crime which often subjects children to things they have no control over and how it impacts on their life trajectory. I think those are factors that we have to consider in moving forward. If we want to see the scourge of violence coming to an end, there needs to be the steps taken to ensure that society as a whole, there needs to be a collective effort where society stands up to ensure that we have to look at the terms of reference addressing the seriousness, the gravity, the extent of how harmful it is, and certainly not promoting the best interests of children.